KFSR and CMAC present the Central Valley Ledger, a public affairs program featuring stories from all over the Central Valley with Sevag Tateosian, 90.7 KFSR.
I'm your host, Sevag Tateosian. Welcome to the Central Valley Ledger. We're recording out of the beautiful downtown Fresno studios of the Community Media Access Collaborative of Fresno and Clovis. Our guest this week is David Taub. David works for a publication called GVwire. Welcome to the program.
Sevag, thank you so much for inviting me.
So I've dealt with you on a lot of things over the years. I mean, what's interesting is you're very involved in a bunch of stuff. So I think when we first interacted, you were doing some things on radio.
Well, I've always kind of been behind the scenes. I've worked in TV, I've worked in radio, I've done a little bit of writing, but it's always kind of behind the scenes. For radio, I was a producer at KMJ and at Power Talk, and pretty much you kind of help organize the show, you help book guests, you help get information. So I know when you work for Supervisor Pachugian, that's really when we kind of interacted. You know, I'd call you for information, I'll call you to see if we can get the supervisor on the show. So that's kind of the job of the producer, and also some technical duties as well. And I did a lot of that behind the scene, but I always had a curiosity. You know, I always had the journalism in me. I mean, obviously, if you're a producer, you're a journalist too.
Right.
So I think this is really my first in front of the camera role. You know, first time where my byline is almost on everything. And, you know, it's a different experience, but it doesn't, I think all my preparation has helped me. All my experience has helped me get me to this point.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Before we talk about GVwire and how it started, tell us about David Taub. Who are you? Where did you come from?
I came from Los Altos, California, which is a suburb in the San Francisco Bay Area. Went to school at the University of Michigan, go Blue. Very, very happy with the performance so far this season. Still a diehard fan. Then I came back to California and I started working in the communications department at various athletic departments. And eventually wound up working at a radio station in San Luis Obispo as a producer, as a newsreader, as a writer. Then I kind of moved over to television, doing similar stuff behind the scenes. And then when an opportunity came to Fresno to work here, you know, I was newly married. Had a desire to actually own a house. Cause
Up where you were from, that's a little challenging.
Yeah, on the Central Coast, not a chance. But in Fresno, there was a chance, and fortunately was able to achieve that goal. And, you know, in the media, you bounce around a little bit. You know, nothing is permanent. So I've worked for a few radio stations, so a TV station around here. And fortunately, I have been able to work now last year at GVwire.com, which I call it's an online news publication. And it is a great opportunity. I think it's a great opportunity in the Fresno media landscape. You know, we offer a little bit of a different service. You know, yes, we cover news, but we're different from what a TV station is going to do or a newspaper is going to do. And I think we have a role in this Fresno media landscape.
So tell us how you got in contact with GVwire. And when we say GVwire, it's Granville Wire.
Right.
Darius Assimi was also a guest on this program as well several months ago. So first, do you know why GVwire came about?
Well, I think Darius always had a philosophy that you know, good public policy is philanthropy. You know, Darius, in addition to being a home builder with Granville Homes, is a philanthropist. You know, he has many interests in business, you know, in public philanthropy in this town, and one of them is good public policy. Of course, you know, I'm not saying anything that's unknown about people who know Darius, that, you know, he is involved in local politics and municipal politics, and, you know, he's a top donor, he's a top advisor, and a lot of people come to him just for advice. They want his endorsements, and I think this is kind of an extension of that. That Darius said, you know, why can't we have a voice? Why can't we have a foothold in the Fresno media landscape to tell the stories that are important to him? Of course, immigration issues are very important to him. You know, business issues are very important to him, and I think this is another avenue. Now, that being said, you know, he knew the pluses and minuses of being Darius Assimi starting a news organization.
And I'm going to ask you about that, because some people will say, how do we know it's neutral? Because it's coming from Granville Homes. How do we know it's neutral? How would you answer that question?
Well, one thing is that, you know, why the name GVwire? And it's what, you know, I didn't come, I came aboard right after they selected the name. And I was wondering that myself. But Darius said, he said to me, and he'll say to others, he wants to be upfront about it. He wants to be transparent about it. It's the same logo as Granville Homes, the GV. So, we don't want you to, it only takes a few clicks to find out who's behind it. So we're going to be upfront about it. Yes, Darius Semi Granville Homes is the publisher of GVwire. But in the same regard, the Walt Disney Company owns ABC 30.
Right.
It's nothing new for a corporation to own a media interest. And the way you do is you hire people who have no journalism, have journalistic standards, and if there ever is a overlap, if let's say we're doing a story about housing that Granville's involved in, or doing a story about one of the philanthropies that the Assemi family is involved with, we're going to mention that in the story. We're going to be upfront about it. We're not trying to be underhanded.
Hide anything.
Yeah, we're going to be transparent. Just like when ABC 30 does a story about a Disney movie, they always say, Walt Disney is the parent company of ABC 30. We're going to do the same. That's simple journalistic practices.
Do you know what the goal is as far as readership for GVwire? I mean, you don't have a hard copy publication, correct?
Correct. We're all online. That's how people are getting their news these days. They're not necessarily buying a hard copy newspaper. They're not watching the 6 o'clock news all the time. They are going to Facebook. They are going to Twitter. And I think those news organizations that can quickly adapt their services to the digital world are going to succeed. And we do a lot of videos. We try to tell stories with videos. And one of the things I think there's an advantage with GVwire.com is that we are not under time constraints that a TV news program would be under. The 6 o'clock news, the 11 o'clock news, you have, you got to tell your story in 2 minutes. Any one person who's talking, they only got 20 seconds maximum. Well, here we are not under those same time constraints. So if I think a 45-second cut, a minute cut, as long as you can put somebody in context to say what they're saying, we can do that. Now, of course, there is a limit of somebody's attention span, so that we can't do a 5-minute story. But we do some long-form journalism, and one of the things also is that we can choose the topics that aren't necessarily being covered by the commercial media. We do a lot of in-depth water stories. We can do these stories about immigration. We can do stories about the little things that our city council is doing that aren't necessarily sexy per se, but anytime they're spending taxpayer money and we can find an angle, we can say, this is what the city council is doing. I've been starting a new feature on GVwire.com of This Week in City Council. Of course, they have this week off, so I have this week off in that feature. But I am one who likes to pour through the agenda, who likes to click on all the various documents to explain every single vote that our city council is doing. And when it comes to spending our tax money, whether they're paying for a new sewer, whether they're hiring a consultant, I think it's interesting to know how much they're spending, who are they doing business with, why. The Planning Commission, decisions that they make. Why are they going to grant a liquor license or a business permit to another liquor store? Why aren't they doing that?
Can I stop you right there? And my apologies, because I'm going to interrupt you throughout this.
Oh, I know, because you give somebody the mic, they never give back.
Which is good in my line of work, because it makes life easier for me if you do all the talking. But on that note right there, Planning Commission or any subcommittee of a bigger organization, those stories aren't really covered in the Main Street media, are they?
Not too much. I mean, I really am interested in what our Planning Commission is doing and the little things you can have. When I take a look at what's going on in that somebody wants to apply for a business license and the city staff is recommending no, I want to know why they're recommending no. Who is objecting to this? There's one liquor store in July that was on the Planning Commission agenda in the Fig Garden Village that the neighbors didn't want it there. And interesting enough, the liquor store across the street didn't want it there. So I investigated. I talked to the people. I talked to the people who were applying who wanted to build this project. I talked to the neighbors and find out what the real story is. And then you follow it up finding out what the city planning commission does. And this instance, as most instances with liquor stores, usually they're a combination with gas stations and a bigger project, they approved this one. There was another one in early August from the Johnny Quick people. And there were two different stores. One of them they approved, one of them they did not. And it's interesting to see that when it comes to liquor licenses in this town, they go by census tract, which is, a roughly geographical area. And there are a certain amount by a formula of liquor licenses you can have in a given tract. It seems like for most of them that they're over the limit, yet there's no real consequence for adding one more license. But I think, we always hear these stories about problems with Fresno having so many liquor stores.
Right, right.
And yet, the City Planning Commission does it. We hear from City Hall, we hear from anybody who's running for public office, I'm going to be business friendly, I'm going to be business friendly. But when these issues come to the head, find out how business friendly city it really is.
So, Granville Homes, if you go out to the public and introduce yourself, I doubt you're going to find somebody that doesn't know Granville Homes. Is that a good thing or a bad thing in your opinion?
It's a blessing and a curse sometimes. Darius Assemi can open a lot of doors. A lot of people do know him. He can really help with access. But in the same token, a lot of people just see that and say, oh, well, no.
Yeah, yeah.
We've had people say no to us before. We've had problems getting access to certain areas because of that. But, we try to do it on our own merit. Darius does not, he has houses to build.
Right.
We're just one unit of the Granville companies.
So how do you get funded? I know traditionally advertising dollars is what pays for the media. The reason I ask the question is, GVwire, Darius has taken a risk here. I mean, he's hired you, he's hired Bill McEwen, and we'll talk about the video aspect of it, of who you've hired also. But it's a risk, isn't it?
Definitely. But it is important to Darius. It's a passion of his, and he's willing to fund it. We do not have ads on the website right now, not to say that may come in the future, but I think Darius has believed so much in telling these stories that aren't necessarily being told about how to do business, about the immigration experience, about what is going on at City Hall, at the State House, at Washington, D.C., and how these votes affect you, especially, what's going on right now. At any moment, in the State House, they could be voting on some affordable housing bills that have been much talked about in the news. And, of course, it affects not only just Darius as a home builder, but affects all of Fresno, all of California.
Do you ever foresee GVwire become a hard copy? And here's why I asked that question. I love the hard copy. Call me old-fashioned, call me dinosaur, call me whatever you want to call me. I love the hard copy, the feel of that newspaper. I love reading it. But I don't think that's going to continue longer. What are your thoughts on that?
I have to agree with you on that one. I think the idea of a physical newspaper is a dying breed. It's well known that the Fresno Bee moved their actual operation of printing, which was in Fresno forever, to Sacramento. And that really has affected their hard copy business model, because they have to be done with their publication, at least for the print copy, much earlier than they have before. So that's why their stories go online, not just a few hours before, but sometimes days before. They'll be online first, and then they'll be in the print copy. So that will affect your business model, and I'm afraid it's not going back.
So you meaning GVwire have hired Bill McEwen. Of course, Bill McEwen, everybody knows from the Fresno Bee. How important was that hire?
I think it's very important. Bill, he was a opinion columnist, but he also has nearly 40 years of journalism experience. And that's valuable for me. I can pick his brain. He can look over my stuff, make a couple of tweaks and adjustments. So he has management experience too, and he's helped in the management role. He's writing columns now. He's helping out the editorials, and he's really helped build the opinion side of GVwire. So we've had some guest editorials before, and we'd love to take guest submissions in the future. As long as he can write well.
And the reason why I say Bill McEwen is you're talking about the very point. He was very welcoming to community members writing pieces and putting those pieces in the Saturday paper. So it sounds like the GVwire model is gravitating towards guest columns, correct?
Yes, we'll be taking submissions before. We've already started running some. Really, we're not looking for a particular viewpoint. This past week we had Sylvia Lopez, who's involved in the Growen ALRB situation. She wrote an opinion. We offered the same to the UFW. They did not take us up on that. But, we want to be fair. We don't want to be branded as, oh, you're left wing or you're right wing. We want to cover the news. We want to go where the facts is. We want to go where the truth is.
Well, and it's interesting you say left or right wing because, you know, I've met Darius a couple of times out in the community and he's been a guest here. I never really could get if he's a Republican or Democrat or left wing or right wing. He seems more neutral. Am I correct?
I think in some areas, obviously, when it comes to fiscal and business matters, he's going to be conservative. When it comes to social issues, especially when it comes to the immigration issue, he's going to be a little more liberal. And I think a lot of people feel that way. You know, they're fiscally conservative, socially moderate or liberal. And I think that kind of reflects us here in the Central Valley.
My day job is in HR and personnel, so I look online for job postings to see who's hiring and to look at what the trends are. And so recently I saw something come through the GVwire about audio and visual and those kind of things. Now, obviously in my day job, that's not what I was looking for, but I saw that and I thought, wow, what's going on here? Can you elaborate?
Well, I think we're expanding. You know, just that the commitment there from the Granville Homes, from the corporate in this journalism project is for real. You know, we've been online, we've been publishing for over a year now. I've been there for over a year now. Obviously, adding Bill McEwen is a big addition for us, and we've also added some people in the technical field. We just hired a great person from the entertainment field who worked in LA. She's joining us. She'll be behind the camera. She'll be in front of the camera. She's a great editor. Her name is Jamie Overson, and we really look forward to seeing what journalism she's going to turn out for us.
But is it entertainment? I know her background is entertainment. Are you going towards that area as well, or are you just keeping a niche market?
I think we're going to focus a lot on what's going on at City Hall, what's going on in Sacramento and Washington. That's going to be in our focus, but it doesn't mean that we can't do a fun story once in a while. We can't do a feature piece once in a while. But it's trying to take that different angle. Because we're not going to turn around stories the same day. We're not going to cover crime news. We're not going to cover weather. You know, go to ABC 30. Go to KC 24 for that. But you want the in-depth stuff. What is our planning commission doing? What is our city council doing? What bills in Sacramento are going to affect you? Going to affect your pocket? You know, what kind of how is DACA going to affect you? Those are the stories we're going to cover. Those are the things that we can go in depth with. I think those are the things that we can analyze because of our great team and take the time and help explain it to you.
So you want to do a little bit of visual stuff, video production and stuff like that. Are you strictly website, or are you looking to expand towards television and stuff like that?
Right now we're going to stick to GVwire.com and in our associated social media on Facebook and Twitter. You know, we try to do a lot of video on every story, because I think that's the way the medium goes. And we do have, fortunately, the backing of the equipment. You know, it takes equipment, it takes time, and it takes the editors and it takes the software to all come together. And I'm just so glad that we have that commitment to be able to do it, to have that time where, you know, you don't have to turn something out, you know,
right
2
away.
hours after the story. You can kind of process it a little bit, analyze it a little bit, edit it a little bit more, so it's good quality journalism.
Are you always looking for a story? The reason I ask you is I went to a fundraiser the other night, meaning a couple of months ago, and you were there.
Right.
We talked a little bit at the fundraiser. When you're out and about, is your reporter hat always on, or are there times where you're like, all right, you know, I'm here to have a good time. No matter what comes across my face, I'm not going to go after it.
Well, I think once a journalist, always. But, you know, I mean,
and I agree with that, by the way.
It depends on the time and circumstance. Obviously, if you're in a situation like this, a fundraiser we were at, where it's kind of off the record, you know, you're going in an off the record format. I mean, obviously, you're not going to violate anybody's confidence they put in you. Now, of course, you know, if I do hear something hot and juicy, I may ask them, can we follow up on this? Can we go on the record with this? You try to be professional about it.
Are you afraid of making enemies in this business? I mean, and enemies, I'm not saying like, you know, killing each other and stuff like that. But are you afraid of writing something that might offend, let's say, someone in the community or one of the political leaders?
It's happened before, you know. Listen, I'm human. I don't like people not liking me, but the truth matters. And I'm going to go, as long as I think it's truthful, as long as I think the facts are accurate, that we're not rushing to judgment, that we're not just rushing it out without doing our fact checking, then I'm okay with it. I know not everybody's going to like it. As long as I think I'm being fair, that, hey, somebody said something really bad about you, I'd like you to give you a chance to respond. I think that's fair. Unfortunately, even covering these protests that's been going on the last couple of days. Oh, are you Fox News because they're fake news? Then you hear people, oh, with you CNN, you're fake news. So I always figure if they don't like you, they're calling you fake news. And my response, well, thank you for paying attention to us.
Walk us through the website, the GVwire website. I'm on it frequently, but I want you to explain what's on there for people who haven't seen it.
Well, we do cover stories. We try to cover video. Now we're doing more opinion pieces with the addition of Bill McEwen. He's helping out with his columns. He's helping out with the editorial side. Editorials will be kind of the institutional opinion of GVwire, as similar as a newspaper, but we'll obviously put a name attached to it, written by. We'll also carry these op-ed pieces. Darius has written some. We've had some from others in the community. Some politicians have written for us. And we try to do interviews whenever we've had a lot of candidates running for governor who've come through town, and we'll interview them as they come, and other politicians who make their way through. We try to mix interviews with the stories. We did an education story today about a state bill that was proposed that would have helped expand a pilot program that allowed community colleges to grant four-year degrees. But they got killed in the legislative process, mainly because the teacher unions were against it. We got some sound from the teachers unions. We talked with Dr. Carol Goldsmith from Fresno City. We talked with Dr. Joseph Castro from Fresno State. We try to be complete as possible, give 3 or 4 different sides to it, and try to explain what is going on, why did this happen. So you're going to see stories like that. You're going to see stories of what the city council is doing, who is going to be running, especially 2018 election year. We're going to be your election in-depth piece. We're going to find out who these people are. We're going to find out who is their financial donors. And even if it is Darius Semi, we'll say it.
Yeah.
We're not trying to hide it. We're not trying to bump up any candidates that he may support or bury candidates that he doesn't support. We're going to be fair. We're going to give you a fair shake.
Tell us a little bit about more of the website. Is there a sports page in there, or are you not?
There's a sports tab. We don't shy away from a sports story. I'm a sports fan. I like doing such stories, but it's not our main focus. I think we do have the leeway that anybody who in our system or in on our team, hey, I got a great story. I want to go do it. Whether it's a sports story, an art story, we're going to go for it. If it's compelling, if it's interesting, it can hold your interest for a few minutes with a video. We encourage that. We try to take sometimes water is such a complex issue.
Yes, very much so.
And we're going to try to make it down, break down with video, break it down with analysis for you. Are you familiar with the website Cal Matters?
Yes, I am.
They're a great model to follow. That they take the very complicated issues and really break it down, especially on the affordable housing issue. And there's an affordable housing summit coming up in Fresno as we're taping this right now. It'll probably pass by the time this airs. But we're talking to people who are there. What is the problem? Is it supply? Is it demand? What is Sacramento doing or not doing? Well, these are the questions we're going to ask, especially when it comes to our leadership. When it comes to these people running for office coming to town, we're going to ask them, where do you stand in the water? What's the solution to housing? What's the solution to immigration?
Continuing on with GVwire, it sounds like what you're shooting for is to be a neutral publication with the disclosures that you're giving and stuff like that. Do you foresee any conflicts there?
I mean, there always will be. And I think, when you have a human writing it, somebody can always pinpoint and nitpick, well, you used this word instead of that word, or you talked to this person instead of that person. So there's always going to be, I think, an inherent human bias to it, but we're trying to be fair. And if we're wrong and somebody, points it out to us, we'll fix it, But we're not an ideological piece. We're not going to try to bury anybody just because they oppose.
Right.
Or pump somebody up because we support them.
How do you define success with something like GVwire? Is it the number of clicks to the website, or is it the interest generation in the community?
I think it's a little bit of both. The obvious metric is clicks, Facebook likes, and that's been on a steady rise for us. It's hard to say, well, who do you compete with? Do you compete with the TV stations? I mean, obviously they're going to have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Facebook followers and Twitter followers. We're not there yet. I don't know if we're ever going to get there because it's hard to have the reach as a newspaper. But I think we try to do it. Can we tell stories in a different way? Because anybody can go to the crime scene and we'll talk to the police officer. We'll show you video of the crime scene. Maybe we'll talk to a victim. We're not going to chase those stories. We'd rather chase the policy stories that affect your bottom line. Bring awareness to the issues that affect us here in the Central Valley.
How often do you update the stories? I mean, if I go on this morning, if I went on and I went on this evening, am I going to find the same story, or is it going to be updated regularly?
We don't have where we're going to update 5 stories a day. We're going to update it as it constantly goes on. But it averages out to about a story or 2 a day. But sometimes, there'll be a day or 2 where we're going to take a time to work on this story. So it may be a long form piece, so it may not be updated that day. But maybe the next day you have 2 or 3 stories go up.
Yeah.
So it averages out to about a story or 2 a day.
We are running out of time this week on the program. I think you've educated us a lot about GVwire. I've been on the website numerous times because I am interested in the stories that maybe don't generate the mainstream interest, but that do show some interest or that I share interest in. Tell us how to find out more information, where to go, and what to expect. GVwire.com is your main source. You can also find us on Facebook, facebook.com/GVwire, or twitter.com/GVwire. All our stories will make it on all 3 platforms. Our contact information is on all of them. News@GVwire.com is probably the easiest way to get a hold of us. Our phone number's there. My contact information is at all my stories. So just go to GVwire.com. If you want to read some interesting stories, go in depth about these City Hall issues. We are followed by those who are in the know. And we know that because we kind of hear the feedback from it. We've been quoted on the State House floor. When we were covering the ALRB issue with Isidore Hall's appointment to this board. And I couldn't believe it when I was listening. The state senator was actually quoting, she didn't give me credit, but she quoted one of the stories I wrote about it. So, and we had the chance to go to Washington a couple months ago. Nice.
I had a chance to go to Nancy Pelosi's news conference, and I asked Nancy Pelosi a question that she didn't really hear too often from the Washington media about water, about Temperance Flat Dam, and that completely threw her off.
Well, we look forward to going online to gvwire.com and reading more about what the stories are that you're producing. So, David, thank you. We're out of time this week, or else I could easily talk to you for another hour. Thank you so much for being on the program this week, and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much.
That's all for this edition of the Central Valley Ledger. You have been watching the program and listening to the program on 90.7 FM KFSR Fresno, also on the CMAC channels, Xfinity 93 and AT&T Uverse 99. We hope you enjoyed the programs this week. Thank you to our volunteers. We couldn't do the program without them. They're in the studio now making us look and sound good. Tune in next week to a new edition.
KFSR and CMAC present the Central Valley Ledger every Sunday morning at 11:30. For a complete program schedule, visit kfsr.org.